Is it? Okay, good. All righty, well, welcome to the Monday, October 22nd special meeting and workshop of the Hyde Park Town Board. Please join me while we pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, no one in attendance for the public comments, so we'll just kind of move on quickly to the workshop. Tonight, we have the preliminary budget on the agenda to set the public hearing and to submit the preliminary budget to the town clerk. So TC had sent out a couple emails. I don't know if everybody got a chance to look at them today. Yep. So just really going over the details in terms of, we've almost reached a $10 million budget.
See that.
And the total town-wide tax levy is $216,137, which meets the tax cap. And the tax rate increase is 20 cents per thousand of assessed value from 6.75 to 6.95. which means the average single-family property assessed at 120 will see a tax dollar increase of $24. The public hearing on the budget is scheduled for November 5th, when the residents are welcome to speak on it. And then we are scheduled to vote on the final budget and adopt it on November 19th. So as we kind of went over last week, we kind of discussed what are the primary drivers of the budget. And as most people realize, it's personnel, compensation, and benefits. To review where we are with the police budget, as most people realize that our part-time chief retired after many years, and we are now have promoted Rob Benson to that full-time chief position. And consequently, there is an increase in the budget to account for that increase in expenditures for, to go from a part-time to a full-time police chief, along with a full-time lieutenant, which is anticipated. The other highlights are the contribution rates for the employee state retirement system have stabilized, remaining basically the same. Though I did hear from Sandy today that it's about a 10% increase in health insurance, which is annoying. But, a few years ago, the town moved to a high deductible plan, which I'm asking for them to do a bit of an evaluation on how that stacks up in comparison to the traditional plans. But I think we've done a little bit better with that high deductible plan. So we are going to use $105,000 of fund balance to control the tax rate. And the police department is 29% of the townwide budget, increasing it, as I said, $180,000 due to the compensation and employee benefits. And we've kept the parks and recreation pretty much at is basically the same. And there are some proposed salary increases for elected officials. In the highway fund, there is a total budget increase of $50,000 without considering the possible special appropriations for new machinery, acquisition and roads resurfacing to be discussed after we close the books. And we'll as part of this plan, we don't have any additional monies budgeted for capital plans or capital projects. But we hope and we expect that the 2018 budget will produce some contributions to fund balance. And we do have been, as many people know, created a number of reserves in our budget, in our fund balance, and that's been very healthy and also required by New York State. So we're pleased that we have created those. And so we expect at the closing of 2018 that the snow emergency reserve fund balance will be $300,000, and have taken $70,000 of the fund balance to use in the 2019 budget. So again, we're under the tax cap. I know we had someone express concerns last week about us exceeding it, and just want to reiterate that that we pass that every year. As you all know, as a precautionary measure, and we definitely do not anticipate that we will be exceeding the cap. That's my thought anyway, so.
Yeah, that's good. I'm on the library board, and they do the same thing every year also. I
Oh,
think.
they do?
Yes,
Okay.
every year, and then they
Okay,
rescind
good.
it.
Yeah, I noticed I think we have the
Yep,
library's
yeah,
budget in
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, so,
But it's prudent to do that.
yeah. So,
It seems as if the past few years, we've been able to use some of the fund balance towards the next year's budget, which is, it's nice. What it indicates to me, if I'm understanding it right, is that, we're budgeting conservatively as far as what the revenues will be. And then when we do end up having excess revenues to put into the fund balance, then we can use it towards the next year to keep the taxes stable. And so that's a good pattern to be able to get into.
yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, that is actually the safe way to do it, because that way you're assured that you will have the proper funds when you need it. But if there's any reserves left, then we can use those to keep the tax rate down. So yeah, that is the plan. That's what we've been able to do, because we've added over the 7 years that we've been here, almost 2 million to the fund balance. But, most of that is in reserves and for future expenses, like the emergency fund for the snow emergencies, and also the compensated absences, which that just sounds like kind of an abstract concept, but basically when people retire from the town, they have, if they've met the 20-year requirement, they have lifetime health insurance, and so they are also entitled to buyouts or to being paid for their unused time. And so in prior budgets, that was never really figured in, so I think there was often a bit of a crisis as to, okay, how do we fund these benefits? So.
And moving forward, I mean, we do have an aging workforce. It's only going to grow more and more.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that, UNTC worked through that at an earlier time in our budgets, earlier in the years, because otherwise we'd really be in some trouble.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I don't know if you all recall from the budget presentation with Joe, help me out, what was their name? Bonadeo Group. That the requirements for audits going forward are going to require that all towns show those projected
Oh, is
payouts.
that right?
Yeah, so it's going to
Because
have a
it's real.
lot of implications
Yeah.
for, I mean, only in terms of reporting. It doesn't have any implications more beyond that, but all of a sudden your balance sheet is going to show all those obligations going for many
I mean, they're
years.
real.
Yeah, they are.
They're
So-
real.
I still can't get my head around that, because it really doesn't affect us, he's saying, and all towns are doing it.
Right.
But it is a obligation.
Well, it's the GFAO requirements.
The way they
that-
change it.
Yeah, to now, because like it is apparently, one could say it's much more transparent to be able to project those costs going forward, so it's good that we're kind of on top of that. I don't know if anyone has any other questions. We had a bit of a discussion with a number of people that had hoped to add staff, particularly in the planning and building staff hours. And, we really have not been able to accommodate that, though we wished we could, because they're very critical to the operation of the town, but that was not included in this budget.
Can we talk about the highway
Sure.
just for a minute? Because that's something that, I think we've talked about in the past, and I just want to make sure I understand. So right now, the way we have it, we have, the only paving that we have in here is the chips, right?
Yep.
180,000? And we don't have anything in for buying any trucks. It's, what we have in here is just paying back the bonds on the trucks we've already bought, right? So, I mean, my understanding then is that once the books are closed out for the year, if there's, we'll look into buying a truck using the excess funds and bonding if needed.
If needed. Yeah, so.
Bonding for equipment.
Or for a truck, yeah. I mean, Howie, we met with Howie,
Yeah.
and he, early on identified the need for a chipper and a backhoe. Is that right, Ken?
Well, the
Yeah,
chipper, we
already purchased that back.
during the storm.
Right.
So what he's really in need of would be another plow truck, another
Right.
dump truck.
But I think we went forward with the backhoe.
And a couple pickups, right? Isn't that what?
Well, that's what is on his wish list.
On his wish list.
Yeah.
Right, the backhoe, that's
But the
right.
backhoe as a first.
The loader.
As a first priority.
That's right, that's right. But yes, we're talking to Howie, we bonded for quite a few roads this year and got a lot of roads done. So we spoke about the paving for next year would be with chips. We did speak about eventually getting to a point where we could actually put in a budget for, those large expenditures of vehicles, but doing it in this budget would really put us over that 2% tax cap, which I believe, and I think you would probably feel the same way, and I would imagine the rest of the board would feel that we didn't want to exceed the tax cap based upon that. In the years that we've set up on this dais, it's a process to get to that point. There was a time where when we first came in, we didn't have two nickels to rub together, and we were praying that we didn't have snowstorms because we didn't know where the money was going to come from. And now we have $300,000 in that reserve, and then we're doing it with the employee buyouts. We have that reserve. So I'm open for 2019, that we could actually start really allocating money towards paving and expenditures of large equipment.
You mean
But
in 2020?
2020, I'm sorry, for
Okay.
2020, I'm sorry, for 2020. But if we did it for this budget, that would really put us over the tax cap.
Oh, I understand
Yeah.
that. What I just wanted to ask, though, so in other words, though, if there's money left, we're going to put it towards the trucks. So we're
That's
not going to
right.
put any towards paving this year.
That's right. You're talking to Howie, he said what was most important, if he was going to choose between a vehicle or paving.
Yeah.
He would choose the
Okay.
vehicle.
And I guess what, I understand that where we're at now is we have these payments we have to make for all
Right.
these bonds that we've taken out.
That's right.
But what I would really like to see is two things. One, a capital plan showing, the expense we should expect each year to keep our truck fleet in order,
Yeah.
which I think is something that would not be that hard to figure out. I mean, it's basically a truck a year, but I'm kind of estimating that. So I
Right.
would like to see a capital plan. And then also, I would kind of like to see a plan as to how we can wean off of this bonding, if that's wise, which it seems to me it is, but I would, I think that would be good to look into. We can't just, we have to pay the bonds that we already have.
That's right.
And so that means we don't have the flexibility to spend that money on new equipment. But how can we, as those bonds are retired, start buying things outright rather than bonding for them? And so I'm just wondering if that is a task that we can assign to the comptroller's office to take on, or how we can get that capital plan done, because I feel like we keep talking about it and not getting it
Right,
done.
I talked with TC about
Okay.
that, and he said it's not typically part of a budget, but.
I don't mean as part
yeah,
of the
yeah.
budget, but we,
Yeah.
at what point does that get done? I mean, is
Hmm.
that something they can work on?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Part of our discussion with Howie and the police chief were about the vehicles.
Right.
And how we can plan on the replacement. And I think with the police, he felt that there were a couple of additional vehicles in their fleet right now. although
Right,
they
there
have
was
the
one need for a four-wheel drive. The Tahoe's like a 2010 with 180,000 miles on it. But I think we're okay at the moment with the police
The police,
department. What was really the pressing for Howie was going to be another plow truck, because he has one truck that is like a 19, I think it was like a 94 or something.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of old ones, and that's
Right.
just, I mean, the number of trucks we have, I mean, we've been over this, it's not
Yeah,
really a
there's no
surprise that
doubt.
So I guess, what's a reasonable time frame that we could ask is it the comptroller's office that will undertake the capital plan, or how does that work?
Well, maybe the board would like to take it up. I know I worked on it initially with Joe Petito. But I think part of the capital plan really is to analyze what's existing in the fleet now, right? And then that we were provided with when we met with Howie, and which, details the year and the number of miles, et cetera, on that. And like you say, you know, the thought of replacing one a year, building that into your budget going forward would be about expecting to spend about 225,000 starting this year and
No,
expecting.
I don't, but if
that-
you eventually, I don't think it's easy to just jump right into it. Because we are paying more than that a year in bonds for trucks that we already bought.
Right.
So the question is, as those bonds are retired,
retired,
how do we
right.
start to buy things outright rather than keep bonding? Because we're paying interest unnecessarily.
I think when I talked to TC about, because I spoke to TC about that, I think the largest bond that we have right now is the landfill, and I think that we have like another, I think 2 or 3 years on that, I believe it is. And then TC said that would really release us from a lot of that debt on the bonds. But I agree. I think for 2020, we should start really having that in our, at least in our work session, so to figure out how to really get that going, because we have spoken about it, Em, a lot.
So Emily, are you asking for a schedule of bond payments and debt? Is that really what you're looking for? Or were you specifically looking more for a, combined with a analysis of the existing fleet? Are you looking for an analysis of the current debt and when it's due to expire as part of that plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, and combining that along with the existing fleet. Because
Right.
there, and when TC presented at the board, I think last week or a couple weeks back, you know, he talked about the way that the town borrowed money in the past was typically, it would be a declining balance. But for some reason, the way they decided to borrow it was not, that they kept the payments flat. But, so that is typically what a municipality would do is, like you say, you'd every year be retiring some debt and then be freeing up those monies. So I'm not sure, you know, but we could certainly ask them to do that. I know that one of the things that we were doing today is refinancing some of the current debt that we have and rolling a number of the bands that we had borrowed money for. Last year, we bought 3 trucks, 2 for rec, one for the building inspector. I think the year before that, we bought some short-term borrowing for highway, the smaller vehicles. And I mean, so I think that is an ongoing process that we could certainly ask them to prepare that if you'd like, yeah.
Okay.
Are we talking about a line item in the budget, or TC said? that
For
we-
what? For,
To fund it.
well, I think what Emily is saying is that she'd like to see a plan which would identify our current debt obligations
Right.
and with an expected time frame for those to be paid off. And could we use those funds in developing a plan to purchase machinery outright? I think that in reality that there will be, some of that will be workable, but I think you would always need to add additional funds into the budget, most likely for
Yeah.
for some capital purchases.
I guess, that's one piece of it, but I guess the bigger thing that I feel that we're lacking is any sort of a just capital plan for the things that we know we have to buy every year. It seems like every time it's a matter of like, this truck is not gonna pass
It's a fire
inspection and
drill,
we
yeah.
need to do something about it. And I just don't feel that that is the way that we need to be operating when these are predictable expenses.
I think
So-
TC, when we spoke about, actually it would be a line item, I believe, that we were going to do, you know, savings for blacktop, savings for capital purchases of large vehicles, you know, start doing a reserve like we do now in the budget for like the snow, you know, because we know every year there's going to be some sort of expense. And I believe it, hopefully in 2020, we can actually start that process.
Okay, that's great as far
Yeah.
as the budget. I'm just wondering when we do the part where we make the plan that says this is how much we need each year to keep our fleet in order.
So would you like to see that something like adopted as a policy, or?
Yeah, or an analysis of it at least.
Analysis, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I could work with
sure.
TC and
Or
how.
I'll
we
work
would-
with them
Yeah,
on it, but
sure.
I don't know if that's something that the board wants to
Yeah.
do, or if I should do, or if I can ask
Well,
someone to do
yeah.
it, or how that works.
Yeah, I think you could certainly ask TC to do it, and then maybe make sure that you identify what parts you want to see in that plan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
that'd be good.
Sure,
Good.
absolutely.
Okay, so, again, there's really, that has not been considered in this particular budget, so I don't know if anyone has any other input they'd like to give. Joe, you're being very quiet down there. So, we're all good to go on the workshop then? All right, so we'll go forward with the resolutions, is that okay?
Resolution 1022-1 of 2018, resolution approving 2019 preliminary budget and setting the public hearing for the 2019 preliminary budget.
No second.
And all in favor?
Aye. Resolution 1022-2 of 2018, resolution amending Resolution 1015, 2018, authorizing the release of the balance of escrow from the Town of Hyde Park Zoning Board of Appeals according to Resolution Number 18EZ.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 1022-3 of 2018, resolution authorizing the town supervisor to approve expenses for the establishment and maintenance of a public website for the Hudson River Drinking Water Intermunicipal Council.
Second?
And Emily, did you want to speak on that at all?
Sure,
or-
yeah. So a few months ago, the town entered an intermunicipal agreement with 6 other municipalities to form the Hudson River Drinking Water Intermunicipal Council. And it's kind of a low-budget group. I mean, it's just each municipality sends a representative, and we meet each month. And so in order to kind of keep going, different municipalities are contributing different things. And so what I was asking here for us to contribute is, it's about $200 or less to set up a website for the council. And so that's.
Well, that's great,
this.
thank
Yep.
you, thanks for doing that. So, all in favor?
Aye.
And the last, Resolution 1022-4, 2018, resolution authorizing the town supervisor to submit statement of unpaid charges to the Dutchess County real property tax for inclusions on the 2019 tax bills in accordance with the provision of town law.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
And this is the second step in the
Mowing and all
grass
that.
maintenance process is to attach the properties for the expenses. And so, we need to follow a very specific process to make that happen. So I'm glad that that will be placed on the individual's tax bills for next year. And we will get compensated appropriately. So,
Fantastic.
Good.
okay, so I think we have another meeting next, do we have another one next week? It's this.
And the next week.
And the next week.
Next
And the
two
next
weeks?
week, and the next week, and the next week, but
Let's just meet every week.
it's because of the required schedule to meet the state schedule, so. All right, so may I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you, Peter.
yes, that was a quick one.
Yeah.